township came here. We got school buses. The school buses come like right down my street. Every morning, picks up the kids.
See? I'm ready to review already.
Okay. I'd like to call the meeting to order, please. Thank you. So we'll stand for a moment of silence and a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Madam Secretary, could you do the roll call, please?
Jamie Girardi,
Here.
Don Anderson,
Here.
Peter Hansel,
Here.
Roberto Size, Christopher Poole,
Here.
Richard Tonello representing Chris Williams,
Here.
Chairman Charles Gray.
Here. And could you read the proof of publication?
The items were advertised in the Tampa Bay Times on August 25th, 2021, October 13th, 2021, and October 20th, 2021.
Okay, thank you. All right, we don't have any minutes to approve, so at this time, if anybody plans to come up and speak or give testimony, if you would please stand and raise your right hand and be sworn.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give today is the truth, so help you God?
All right, thank you very much. And I'd like to welcome you and give you a little bit of information before we start. The Planning Commission is appointed by the Board of County Commissioners, and we meet twice monthly. We serve as a local planning agency, and we hold public hearings and transmit to the Board of County Commissioners recommendations on comprehensive plan amendments, land development code amendments, land development, land rezonings, and conditional use requests. Planning Commission is the final decision-making body for special exceptions, certain appeals, variance requests, and certain alternative standard requests. However, the final decisions may be appealed to the Board of County Commissioners. So if anyone is in opposition to any development code amendment, rezoning, conditional use, or any item where the Planning Commission transmits a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners, it's important for you to attend the appropriate Board of County Commission meeting. And for those of you who are not familiar with the format of the meeting, we have three sections. The first one is for continuances. It's in our custom to approve continuances, usually requested by the staff or the applicant, unless there are extenuating circumstances. We have consent agenda items. Those are items where we have not received any letters of objection from the public or from the staff, and they are placed on consent agenda, and we'll read those independently, but unless you raise your hand and ask one to be pulled, they'll stay on consent, and we'll vote on them at one time and approve them. And then we'll have regular items. Those are the items that are not continued or not on consent, and or ones that were on consent and pulled. And we'll go through those item by item. So the applicants will have 3 minutes to make their presentation. Objectors will have 3 minutes to state their concerns. Unless we've had requests for extra time in writing at least 24 hours prior to this meeting. I think we've had 2 of those. Is that right?
That's correct, Mr.
Denise?
Chair.
Okay. So For anyone who happens to have their cell phone in their possession, which includes me, this would be a good time to make sure it's in the silent position so we don't interrupt anybody that may be speaking. And before we start the regular meeting, I'd like to open the meeting for public comment. If there's anyone here that wants to make public comment on something that does not appear on today's agenda, this would be the time to do it. Is there anyone? I don't see anyone.
Mr. Chair, do we have anybody registered to speak on WebEx at all today?
There's no one registered to speak on WebEx at all,
For any item?
for any item.
Okay, thank you.
Just you have staff on WebEx.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Denise.
Mr. Chair, Planning Commission members, Denise Hernandez, Planning and Development. We're going to start today with item PC1, which is PDD 227567. It's a zoning amendment in the name of G&H 54 LLC for a change in zoning from AR Agricultural Residential District to a C2 General Commercial District. This comes to you with a recommendation of approval.
All right. Is the applicant present? Anyone here to object? See no objections?
Following item is PC2, PDD 227550. It's a zoning amendment in the name of Acorn 54 LLC, Acorn. It's for a rezoning from MPUD Master Plan Unit Development District, formerly known as Windfields, to a C2 General Commercial District. Comes to you with a deed restriction, voluntarily agreed upon deed restriction, that the location will not have any self-storage facilities for a period of 5 years. And this comes to you with a recommendation of approval.
All right. Is the applicant present? Anyone here to object? Okay.
Mr. Chair, the following item, PC3, will be pulled from consent. We do have some folks here signed up to speak on that item.
Okay.
So we're going to move on to item PC6, which is on your addendum. PC6 is PDD 227570. It's a zoning amendment, Clark Property MPUD Master Plan Unit Development, Robert J. Clark Jr. Trust, and others. It's a rezoning request from AC Agricultural R1 Rural Density Residential, ER2 Estate Residential, and R1MH Rural Density Mobile Home District to an MPUD Master Plan Unit Development District to allow for the development of 410 residential, detached, and attached dwelling units on 322.21 acres. This comes to you with a recommendation of approval with conditions as included in your agenda packet.
All right. The applicant present? Anyone here to object? See no objections?
And that is the end of your consent agenda.
All right. So the only one was pulled with PC3.
We're
Okay.
pulling item PC3. P4 was already on regular.
Okay. So do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as submitted, as amended?
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion of the motion? If not,
I have
all in
a
favor?
quick question or a quick comment, just for PC6 to ask that applicant to stay around for the PC3 or P3, just so they stay, because it's pertinent to the approval.
I mean, it's
You
part
mean
of-
P4, it's related to P4, you mean?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you, David. Okay, good.
All right. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion of the motion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. All right.
And Ms. Kayla Lloyd will be presenting item PC3.
All right. Thank you.
Denise, before we get to PC3, was P5 on regular because there's opposition, or?
P5 is on regular because it's that's something that is presented to the local planning agency. Did you want Amir to do P5?
He can, I just that I don't know that there's any requirement that it had to be going regular. It could have been on consent, unless. Does staff want to do a presentation to planning commission on it?
We can put it, we can, as long as,
I can,
is there anyone here to object to P5? Yeah,
Well, unless planning commission has questions about it, you don't have to have a presentation.
Okay.
It's up to you all. I just try to speed things along.
right,
okay.
If there's no opposition and no questions, it doesn't make sense.
to go through the
To go through it.
exercise.
Okay, well, I'll read it into record.
Okay,
And so on P5, you're sitting as a local planning agency. So today what we're asking you to do is to find these proposed amendments consistent with the Pasco County Comprehensive Plan and recommend approval to the Board of County Commissioners. So P5 is PDD 220058. It's a comprehensive plan amendment, CPAL 21, parens 04, Chapter 7, Transportation Element. This is to providing for text amendments to Chapter 7, Transportation Element, Table 7-2A, Corridor Preservation, and repealing Table 7-2B, providing for map amendments to the Highway Vision Plan and Functional Class Map, Map 7-36, and the Transportation Corridor Preservation Map, Map 7-35, and providing for additional text amendments as necessary for internal consistency. Again, you're sitting as a local planning agency on this item. We're asking that you find it consistent with the Pasco County Comprehensive Plan and recommend approval to the Board of County Commissioners.
Thank you, Denise. So does anyone here have an objection?
No.
Okay. If not, then I'll hear a motion.
Make a motion to accept the amendments as presented.
Okay, have a motion, and then we have a second.
I'll second.
Okay, a motion and a second. Any further discussion of the motion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, David. Okay.
So Kayla, your item is up if you'd like to start.
Okay. Item PDD 22-0019 is a proposed small-scale comprehensive plan amendment in the name of CPAC 2108 Forest Lake Estates. Next slide, please. Next slide. This is a visual for the subject property located in the East Market area. Next slide. The applicant is proposing an amendment to the future land use map 2-15 and sheet 24 from Res 3 residential 3 dwelling units per gross acre to Res 6 residential 6 dwelling units per gross acre on approximately 29.88 acres located south of County Road 54 and west of Gateway Drive. Resolution to the applicant's proposed amendment is to amend the Blue Map 2-15 and sheet 24, and there is a companion rezoning petition running concurrently with the amendment. Next slide. And then the amendment is consistent with the following policies. Next slide. The subject site is located south of County Road 54 and west of Gateway Drive with access from County Road 54. Next slide. The existing future land use classification is Res 3. Next slide. And the proposed future land use is Res 6 to allow for the expansion of the existing Forest Lake estates to the east. And then we recommend the LPA local planning agency find the amendment consistent with the comprehensive plan and approved to the BCC Board of County Commissioners.
Okay.
can she go back one slide, because I have a question for her.
Yeah.
So, the C2 zoning that is there now, I presume is probably inconsistent with the existing comp plan, is that right? I mean, I guess I'm trying to figure out, did that predate the comp plan? That existing zoning?
There is like a companion rezoning, so they will be rezoning the subject property.
No, I understand that, but I'm trying to figure out whether that C2 zoning is conflict zoning or not. Like, is it, I'm trying to figure out whether it really is zone commercial or it's not really commercial because it's a conflict with the comp plan.
I will have to look more into that.
Does the applicant know?
This is Clark Hobby and Hobby PA, 109 North Rush Street, Tampa, Florida, have been sworn. David, I do not remember. I will look while we're hearing testimony from our neighbors and can give you the answer then. I'll pull it up on my computer.
Okay.
But today we're just here for a plan amendment. So I asked for extra time on this matter, and even though we're on consent, we do have some neighbors who are worried about the project. I thought it might just take a couple of minutes and explain it to the Planning Commission, what we've been trying to do. Denise, or if I could get that exhibit up that we were talking about.
And David, to answer your question, it's a conflict zoning. It was rezoned in 1984.
Okay. Thank you.
So this project, when we get the exhibit up, we'll see in just a minute. Okay, and the pointer, Denise, remind me, it's just this one?
Yeah, it's the zone.
The middle one? The top button. Okay. My client owns this existing project, which is almost 1,000-unit manufactured housing community, Equity Lifestyles, and they bought this property a couple of years ago. And we had a community meeting with our neighbors just before COVID hit, and we're talking about what we were proposing for the project, which was the first part of it is the Res 6 future land use change that you see before you today. The project is presently Res 3 in this area. There's Res 6 across the street right here, and Res 6 right here. And over on this side, this is the Linville's property that has light industrial on it. So today, the only thing before the LPA is the discussion about whether Res 6 is proper. Again, there's Res 6 across the street, Res 6 here. I believe it goes down to Res 1, generally the further south that you get. What this plan is showing you, and what I've been working on for roughly 18 months now, is we had a community meeting with our neighbors, and they voiced a lot of concern about the existing gateway. Let's see if this is gonna. Okay. Anyway, Gateway Drive lies to the immediate east of the site and bisects the site that's proposed for the plan amendment right here. This is Gateway Drive. It's a 2-lane divided roadway, highly unusual. The right-of-way is presently owned by the county, okay? But it's never been accepted for ownership and maintenance by the county, and so our neighbors to the south have been maintaining it at their own cost for many years. So the discussion we had with our neighbors a year and a half ago was about what happens to Gateway. The people were very worried about being between one project and another, driving between it, and having, this is an age-restricted community, and this would be as well. They were worried about having senior citizens walking down the right-of-way because they have, more of a rural lifestyle to the south here. And so what we've been working on is a plan where we would build a new roadway free of charge, our cost, and hopefully either we were going to maintain it or the county was going to take ownership and maintenance of it, so they would not have to maintain this going forward. And the county would swap this land for this land and these improvements. And in addition to that, our client has proposed to pony up enough money to the county or to their group so that the entirety of Frontier Drive and Marks Avenue can be resurfaced. This road, Frontier Drive, extends roughly a mile south of this site. So my client was going to build an entirely new road as opposed to having this 30-year-old road, which has been having to be patched significantly, and you can see when you drive it has operational issues on it. We're going to build a new road with new landscaping, and so it wouldn't be bisecting through manufactured housing communities, and then we're going to give them enough money to resurface all of their existing roads. what I'm hearing from the few neighbors that have come today, that is news to me, apparently several of them, or the people here, are objecting to that and would maybe not like to see the existing roadway go away. I guess we can have another community meeting about it. I may do that before we get to the board, but that's really a side issue and it's not related to whether the Res 6 future land use change that the board's hearing today is relevant and is proper. And again, there's Res 6 north of the site, Res 6 east of the site, and light industrial. So I don't think it would be a good planning exercise if someone thinks that having rural uses next to what's likely to be a large industrial area and between a Res 6 area. I don't think that's likely to happen, and I don't think it's good planning. And that's really what the decision, is about today. We have done our transportation needs assessment. There's adequate capacity on the adjacent roadways, and I have Mike Razor here to answer any questions about traffic and transportation. We've analyzed where the curb cuts are. They meet the spacing criteria. So I'm somewhat at a loss that this many neighbors are objecting to this when I thought my client was going above and beyond the call of duty here. But having said that, I'm happy to listen to what the comments and questions may be today. And, I'll go back and try to meet with them again and see if we can do a better job of building a consensus. Other than that, I think I'll reserve the balance of my time to answer your questions and respond to my neighbors' questions.
I have one question.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
So, Clark, this new road, I noticed you're showing like a buffer on the west side of it. Is the intent to eventually give the Linvilles access to that road or not? And if not,
It was not to give them access here. They've indicated that they're not interested in it. However, their parcel's large enough, David, they actually have access to Frontier Drive through more of their property. It's further to the south. There's another road further south that provides access to Frontier.
so they could get to the road?
They can
through
get to
Frontier?
it. That's right. It's off this map. It's further south.
Okay.
Any other questions? If not, I'll listen to our neighbors and maybe I can come up with some answers.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hobby. All right. Is there anybody who'd like to speak to this particular application?
Mr. Chair, we do have some folks signed up to speak. The first person signed up to speak is Cindy Buckle.
Okay.
And after that, we have Morgan Anderson and Chris Horton.
Okay. It might be a good idea for the next two people to come sit up in the front row. That way you don't have to climb over everybody when we're waiting.
Okay, we need my name.
We need your name, rank, serial number.
Rank.
Name and address.
I'm sure, my name is Cindy, Cindi, Buckle, Buckel. My address is 5938 Frontier Drive, Zephyr Hills, 33540. I'm not very far from that land. In fact, prior to them fencing it in, I walked with a camera and took several pictures of gopher tortoises that were killed when they bush hogged it. So I also volunteer with FWC, and there is an open case with them for that. My main concern with this is the folks at that current development, they have an emergency gate that comes out onto Gateway. They are not supposed to be using that gate to go in and out on a normal basis. They have a main entrance on County Road 54. They agreed to stop using that gate. And they did for 30 days, and then they started using the gate again. We don't want Gateway to go away. We don't want Frontier Road to change in any way. We're not happy with the oversaturation and the fact that you're adding more traffic onto County Road 54, which is 2 lanes, Chansey Road, which is 2 lanes, Old Lakeland Highway, which is 2 lanes. All of these are 2-lane roads that you continually add traffic into. I have all the fatalities, I have all the injury reports. We are up to 81 fatalities this year. Last year it was 107. We're still in the beginning of November, so it could very well go over 107. The other issue I have is adding this many older people, the emergency police and fire. For instance, we had a cardiac event at my home. 9 minutes was the quickest that anyone could get there, or no, excuse me, 10 minutes. Because our fire department is located on 6th Street, okay, in Zephyr Hills. I have not seen any kind of news or anything about any new fire departments, any new law enforcement, anything like that coming to cover this, okay? My husband spent 4 days in ICU because he drove himself to the hospital. I wasn't home. My fear is if any one of us or them or the new people have a heart attack, anything like that, how are they going to get to us in time? And why do you continue to permit these large subdivisions to be built on 2-lane roads with no plans to widen any of them? 301, Chansey Road, 39, State Road 54 is still 2 lanes. They went bankrupt. It's unacceptable. You're killing people.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
I have just one quick question.
Yeah.
Were those fatalities due to auto accidents?
Yes, auto and motorcycle in Pasco County. I have articles,
Okay.
in fact, I have a quote from Starkey with the Tampa Times who said, oh my God, this is awful, we have to do something about it. So I guess doing something about it was completely mowing down every swamp, wetland, and everything on both sides of State Road 56 so that you could feed.
Excuse me for a second. When I asked about auto accident, was it primarily, I'm looking at this picture up here, was it in that confined area there?
Yeah, there was a fatality at
A single
50
fatality,
County
or
Road
you said
54
107?
and Chansey
Okay.
Road.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, yes.
Okay,
I mean, I get stats every day from FHP.
thank you.
All right, who was next?
Hi, my name is Morgan Anderson. I moved to the county less than a year ago. If you're looking at the map,
We need your address too, please.
6245 Frontier Drive.
Thank you.
If you're looking at the map is where they put the road, my property would be running right there. So I'm the most impacted by the changes that will happen.
Okay.
Like I said, we just recently purchased. We were not informed of this development. The seller's agent did not let us know, and so we are playing catch up. My family is trying to understand what the neighborhood wants, what the developers are planning. We are uncomfortable with this because we had an idea of privacy. We had the idea that we were going to have like a certain zoning around us. This is changing the environment. And so I want to know what the environmental impact will be of adding a new development right here. We've also been under the impression that all this was a done deal, so I was quite surprised to find out that there was this meeting today, because I thought, I was informed personally that everything was done. The building was going to happen, all of the zoning had been completed. So there's been a lot of misinformation and confusion, and I understand that most of the people in my community have had a year and a half to come to understanding what these developers are trying to do, but seeing as my family is the most impacted on this street by these changes, I don't understand what is actually, where they are in their timeline, and it's making me kind of concerned. I'm concerned that we thought we were getting a certain type of lifestyle, and that's being jeopardized by this development. And then I'm also concerned about the traffic and the noise. I understand that there's a whole big argument about where the road's gonna be, which road we're gonna use, things like that, and that's still being discussed. But my concern is we're bringing in hundreds of people, which, by the way, I don't even know the exact number of how many units are gonna be. I've heard from 150 to 90, so I don't really know how many new neighbors potentially I would have looking into my backyard.
Go ahead, you still have a little more time.
I'm sorry?
She still has some time, right?
Okay.
1 minute, yeah.
And so I would like to know more about what the reason would be to change the zoning, why the county thinks this is the best idea. Because if you have all these agricultural properties, and then why are you putting a ton of smaller houses right next to where we have multiple acres of land, where we have horses, where we can have agricultural lifestyle, and then you're putting tiny little, they're not mobile homes, but they're tiny houses basically next to where we are. You're changing our zoning area, you're changing our real estate value, and I mean, I just purchased my home. Like, this is not what we had planned, and I'm trying to understand where the county's coming from, where the developer's coming from, where my neighbors are coming from, and this is just happening really fast for us. We're just finding out.
Okay. So you weren't at any of the meetings that the developer held to talk about that?
No, we moved in December 1st.
Because you just purchased recently, is that why?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm sure he's willing to sit down with you and bring you up to date on anything, any questions you have. But that's why we're here today, to talk about it and bring out the.
Yeah, I would also like to know what the county feels like, what the value this is bringing in to it. Besides, I understand property values, you know, you could fund yourself that way.
When you bought that property, did you know that the property next to you was zoned industrial?
No.
I mean, these are things that, I mean, it's already there, so I mean, it's just, unfortunately, you know, we need to look into these things when we buy these properties. And we don't always, you know, although we'd like to, we don't always have the right really to just assume that that property's never going to be developed. And
it wasn't like I didn't ask, and our agent did. So that's a separate matter that legally they should have disclosed it when we asked. I did ask certain questions about it, and I was informed that this property where they wanted to develop could not be changed. That was the impression we were given.
Well, that's too
And
bad.
so that's why I'm trying to understand also what are just the benefits that the county sees of having this development come in.
Okay. Well, we'll try to get as many questions as we can answered for you, and I'm sure Mr. Hobby would be happy to share anything with you that he has available. So anyway, we'll go through the meeting and see what other questions.
The other thing I'd like to clear up is where this project is in the process. So this is the very first step in the process. You haven't missed anything, because this is the comprehensive plan amendment stage. So after this stage, they still have to go through a rezoning, and after that, then they would have to go through site plan approval. So this is the very beginning of the process. The county has not approved anything related to this project yet.
Okay, because that's definitely not the impression I have been.
Okay, well, whoever told you otherwise was wrong, because this is the very first stage of this project.
And that happens a lot more than you might think.
And
A lot of
on this
people get
particular-
a lot of misinformation.
And on this particular project, there's actually a fourth approval, which is, it sounds like they want to swap roadways, which that's also a fourth approval that would need to occur to swap the roadways.
Yeah, I understand most of my neighbors have been discussing this a lot longer than I have. This has been very much a new development for my family. And so I have been noticing there has been a lot of misinformation, which is why I came today, because I wanted to hear what the county had to say, what the developers had to say, as well as what my neighbors have to say, because I'm not making any decisions before I understand, you know, how we got to this point.
Okay, good. That's fair.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming. Who's next?
Hi. Chris Horton. I live on 40916 Marks Avenue, the one street right that borders.
Okay.
I represent the homeowners, the neighbors that live on that street.
Okay.
That will be facing that park. Okay, I'm going to keep this addressed basically to the rezoning from 3 to 6, because that's what we're here about.
Okay.
Obviously, we have concerns of over saturation in the neighborhood, when it's doubled from 3 to 6. We enjoy living in a bedroom community type neighborhood and wish for it to remain intact. Without rezoning that to RS6 will shortly bring such increased noise, safety issues, and reduced property values. This zone change will only be beneficial to Forest Lake Estate, but not consisting with the comprehensive development of this area. May be comprehensive to across the street, and across 54, even though it's Res 6, there's only a couple houses there. So the way we're looking at is the comprehensive area is all the 57 houses that live to the south of the park. So in our opinion, it doesn't follow the flow of the development. This site development has not yet begun, but it has many concerns from a lot of the people on the street about the natural flow of water runoff that will back up into our neighborhood, and that we're aware. We haven't heard anyone from the developer addressing that issue. Right now, right where Gateway and Marks Avenue come together in that bottom left corner of the pink section, every time it rains, there's a lot of water that builds up right in that corner. They plan on building a big berm, is what we were instructed, on that bottom yellow line, which will back that water up into our neighborhood and into our front yards. Okay?
That it?
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much.
Sir, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So,
Oh, I didn't know that.
you didn't really say anything about the revision to the roadway network, are you?
Yeah, because I thought I thought we were just kind of addressing the zone. Yeah, there's a lot of concerns in the neighborhood. Our biggest concern from everyone about the alternative road is we're in fear of being forced into an annexation from the city of Zephyr Hills. Taxes increased and all that comes with that we just don't want to
Could you
live.
explain, so if the road alignment changes, you're now become contiguous with Zephyr Hills?
Well, the new proposed road on the left side of the map that they're offering to build, we're concerned that somehow, because the city of Zephyr Hills owns a land, lift station. They own a lift station, 100 by 200 feet of property, in that upper left-hand corner that's blocked out. They own that land. So we're in
But
fear.
is that within the municipal boundaries, is what I'm asking?
No, we're not, but it's just down the road. But that is the city of Zephyr Hills right now, that's where they own it.
Is
So
it
we're afraid.
ownership or that's their municipal, maybe staff can answer this question. Where are the boundaries of the city of Zephyr Hills in relation to this property?
Let me do a quick measure and let you know, because it's southeast, so.
I don't believe they can already start.
So in relation to this property, the city of Zephyr Hills, within the municipal boundaries of Zephyr Hills is 3,934 or so feet.
So it's not contiguous with this property?
No, it's not contiguous to this property at all. So Zephyr Hills is west of Chansey and on the north and south sides of 6th Avenue, but west of Chansey.
Just so you know, sir, the city cannot annex property that is not contiguous with the city limits.
Right. Well, we're just in fear that they will come in, and now that lift station is their property. That's our.
But it's not in the city
Yeah,
limits.
it doesn't matter what the property they own. What matters is where the municipal boundaries are.
Okay. Well, that's something we have yet to try to understand.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
the zoning administrator just told you where the boundaries are. They're
3,000 feet down. Yeah, where the
3,900.
boat manufacturer place.
okay.
Yeah, they can't just come in and decide to annex your property. That's just not gonna happen.
Okay.
I guess, let me ask you the question a different way. Assuming the property stayed Res 3, and all they did was realign the roads, are you objecting to that?
What do you mean by realigning the roads?
In other
Swapping
words,
roads like?
Where they were, yeah, the swapping, getting rid of Gateway and putting in this new road.
These are the homeowners here.
Okay,
I'm sorry, you
I'm
can't
asking
speak.
you, I'm
Okay.
asking you, since you said you represent all these folks,
Yes, sir.
are you and your neighbors opposed or either for or against the swapping of those two roads?
Please don't speak from the audience, we can't do that.
There's still a bit, the people on Marks Avenue, the residents on Marks Avenue are against it, but I think there's still some information everyone needs to hear. And that's, that's helpful that, someone on the board says it's not gonna happen. And we understand there's a land bridge issue, but now that they own that lift station property, and I didn't know it has to be part of incorporating the city.
Right.
So.
Yeah,
you
okay,
know.
well, that's good
All
information
right,
that you're
so-
able to get.
You kind of answered my question. I don't have any more questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Who's next? Denise?
That's the last person that we had signed up,
Okay.
perhaps, or there might be some more folks who want to speak.
There's a pen.
All right, so is there anybody that didn't sign up to speak, that wants to speak? You get charged extra if you don't sign up.
Yeah, I told her to sign to make sure she could talk, and I forgot. Do
All
I need
right,
to be
well-
sweared in?
Go ahead.
No, I wasn't. Swear to testify.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the true self you have?
Yes.
And if you could just please state your first and last name and address for the record.
Yep, Rob Buckle, 5938 Frontier Drive. Couple questions about, I'm a little confused and through the discussion. So the Beatties owned the house and along Marks, and then the commercial out by 54. What is the actual zoning today on that property that's on Marks? It looks like we've seen different maps, that there's existing properties. I know they group it all as
Can
the
staff
20
put the
is it
zoning map
29?
back up?
And to Chris's point, if that's all AR with today, Res 3, Res 1, whatever, you've got that across the street that they say is Res 6, but it's all homes on a couple acres. Our whole road is that, and if you sold those lots along Marks, built nice houses, so you built some commercial out on 54, and we're still a nice estate residential community.
So to answer your question, it looks like it's C2 and ER2 is the current zoning, but I want to be clear with you. The reason I asked the question at the beginning of the meeting about whether that C2 zoning was conflict zoning is because if it's in conflict with the comp plan, they cannot develop commercial there. So even though it is on the zoning map showing it's commercial, it really isn't commercial because that commercial is inconsistent with the future land use, which is Res 3. I know that's difficult to understand, but you cannot, it's almost like you need to pretend that commercial doesn't exist.
Well, some of what we've been told is that it's already commercial, can be developed, and you don't have
The
to.
county would not
can't
allow
do
them to develop it commercially. I can tell you that
Okay.
definitively.
So it's residential no matter?
It's residential zoning.
Okay. What about across Marks, the big green that comes down Marks and turns left onto Frontier? That is existing, what I call, is that where we live, our road, is all AR and ER, right? If you've looked it up, that's what we can find online. Changing that to Res 6 is not the same, it's not what we have today. It's not continuous with what our property is, So you keep that the way it is. Yeah, you got Res 6 to the right, but across the road, they're not tearing all them houses. They're building a brand new one on 2.5 acres right now. So I wanted to ask you that about that. The last thing about the road, if I could, because you did ask Chris about the swapping of the road. A couple of my main concerns. One, it puts us closer to that intersection. I drive out there every morning. Traffic is backing up down 54 further and further. You guys see the trucks on the road? I want to sell tractor trailer parts in this county because it's just amazing the amount of trucks on the road. Other thing is, if you look at the proposed future 56 expansion or extension, where are they taking it? Straight down Chancey Road, 301 Chancey Road, 54 is, I guess, the proposed main one. What do we do then when that becomes, say, 4 or 6 lanes? And how do we get out? So that's my concerns about switching the roads. I'd say leave it the way it is. leave the Beatty property the way it is and sell it off to people who want to live on 2 to 5 acres. Thank you for your time.
All right, is that it then? Would you like to speak?
My name is Mark Hans. I live at 40289 Wood Trail Lane, 33540. No.
Do you swear to affirm the testimony you're about to give today is the truth, so help you God?
Yes. I just want to say for the record that with, I understand their concerns, but some of us actually would welcome this. With my history and real estate and everything else, there might be a dip in property values, but overall, it's for the better when things like this come into place, especially a county road around the way. It would give us better access, I believe. Others may not feel that way, that's fine. I would like to ask the council one question, is that possible?
Sure.
Does Pasco County, and I want to choose my words carefully, does Pasco County work with cities and towns and everything else to help them expand their tax base by annexing and all that? Do you collaborate with cities in any way like that?
So we do have some interlocal agreements with some of the cities dealing with annexation. There are some annexations we object to, some annexations we don't object to. So I can't give you a definitive answer that we endorse every annexation that's made by a city.
Okay, all right.
It just depends on where it is.
Right, all right. But I just want to stress to you that not everybody in the community feels the same way. They've raised some very good concerns. I applaud that. But some of us would welcome a nicely new resurfaced road down the way. It's pretty messy right now. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I think that was it.
You have another?
Oh, yeah, one more.
Do you swear to affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, so help you God?
I affirm.
And your first and last name?
It's Bob. The first name is Bob, last name is Oris. O-R-O-S as in sand, Z as in zebra.
Your
Address 5306 Frontier Drive.
Thank you.
I'm going to try to do this quickly and succinctly. One of the meetings we had with Equity Lifestyles in our community, when we were there, the residents asked me to work as a liaison between the residents and them to bring some kind of consensus together. I would never do it again. Let me be clear. Okay. However, because I started the project, and I wasn't even going to come today, because we had a meeting, a road meeting, a couple nights ago, where a couple people were adamantly opposed to this, but we didn't accomplish the meeting. Everybody didn't get to speak. Everybody didn't get to express their feelings like he said about the road. I had a dozen people come to my house privately last night to tell me that they would like the road, but they don't want to offend people's senses. So we have conflict on the road that's driving some personal relationship problems in already an anger-conscious society that we have is being accentuated by this problem. We really need to have consensus. It's difficult to gain with some of the things you've heard. And it is true, though, that many people want the road to go through, the new road. And I will honestly say that I think they're spot on when they say Equity Lifestyles is giving us a gift to have the whole road paved and have the new road come in is a gift. We own the road. If we were to pave the road, it would take us about $3,200 per residence. I have been managing the road for 25 years.
Go ahead.
And of those 25 years, I've been taking collections.
$25,000 is what I've collected in 27 years. Okay? And the pothole guys are here. We've gone out and we've filled it. But this road is going to fall apart. It is falling apart. You know, and one of the things for me is if I had the road and I didn't have to build the other road, then I would be jumping on it, but then these guys wouldn't have what they need in order to complete the complex and bring it all together. You know, I don't want any disturbances with my neighbors. I live with them. You know, I can win this battle and lose the war. I go home and I have to wave at somebody and they don't wave. I don't want that. But the consensus is not there, but I will say equity has bent over backwards to accommodate. They've been great. If there was anything to develop there, in my opinion, you want somebody that has the money and the sensitivity to it. And that's what I want to communicate. I don't have a specific point. I'm just trying to handle the balance so you see some of the issues.
Well, I have to say I admire your honesty and your integrity. I know it's a difficult situation to be in, and we're in that situation every time we meet. And it's not a thankful position to be in. You know, we always seem to offend someone, but we try to make the best decisions we can. And I think for the most part, most of us try to put ourselves in the position of the people that live in that area and say, well, you know, how would we feel about it if we lived there? And at least that's the way I look at it. And I think, you know, I think we try to look at it in that kind of light. And, but we have to take into consideration not just those one segment of people. We have to, you know, there's a whole another group of people that live right next to you. And, so, and there's an industrial piece, and there's an R6 across the street. I mean, there's just, and I agree with you. I think, you know, from my mind, and being in the real estate business as long as I have been, to have your road put into a good condition, you know, a new surface on it, it's going to make your property a lot more valuable, and it just is. And to have more than one in and more than one out, again, it's gonna make your property a lot more attractive. And you know, so you know, I see a lot of benefits to what they're talking about doing, and it seems to me that unlike a lot of developers that just try to come in and bulldoze people, it sounds like these developers are really going out of their way to try to help make it something that everybody wins, but everybody also has to give a little bit, and so that's the way I look at it. But I admire your courage, or maybe it's your stupidity. But I've been there. I got the T-shirt. So.
Well,
Thank you.
You can never make everybody happy.
No.
But if you can make, you know, 85% of the people happy, then sometimes 15 needs to carry the burden and realize that the whole has to be happier than just the 15. Because if one person doesn't sign at the top of the road, everybody suffers who wants it. So 15 people, I don't know, anybody say this about the deeds? The deeds are structured so 15 at the top of the road, 15 properties owners have 2 deeds. They have one for their house and they have one for Gateway. They have to sign off on that before they're going to start building the road that says that they're going to release that deed to the right to passageway of Gateway so that they can go to the new road. So those 15 people hold like the cards.
Right.
So if one of those 15 says we're not going to sign, you know, which is very possible, then the other 35 plus the ones on the top that want to sign suffer for one person. You know, so, and I feel bad because that person really, I respect them, you know, but we have to look at the community with that. And I don't know the answers to the numbers. I'm just giving you what I'm feeling here with my neighbors.
Well, thank you a lot for your input. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, you have some more speakers, Clark, sorry.
Sorry, I thought they were done. Sorry.
Do we have your name and address, please, and have you been sworn?
Name's Dennis Murray, and I live at 409 55 County Road 54.
Okay, have you
Zephyr
been
Hills.
sworn, Dennis?
33540.
Have you been sworn?
Excuse me,
Have you been sworn?
have not.
Do you swear from the testimony you're about to give is the truth, so help you God?
Just a comment, I was primarily here for zoning purposes. A gentleman led off the conversation, commented about the R6s or something, R3s, R6s. Anyhow, if you went to that map earlier, went straight across the road from Gateway, that's 2 acres of property, those are mine. I bought that house in 2009. It's zoned agricultural, residential agriculture. I could have up to 2 grazing animals on it. It is not a Res 6. I have 5 neighbors to the west. Every one of them looks like my kind of home. In other words, probably at least 2 acres and a single residence home. So they're probably also R1s or RAs or AR1s. Beyond that is a cattle field that runs to Old Lakeland Road. It's got cattle in it and donkeys. Okay? Now, I don't know all my neighbors to the east heading towards US 19, but I know at least the first 6 neighbors next to me are just like me. Single residence, agricultural. So where this R6 is, north of 54, north of County Road 54, I don't know where it is. Maybe you can clarify that for me.
Okay. Thank you.
That isn't all I had to say, but I didn't
Oh,
make
go
that
ahead.
point.
Go ahead.
Well, he was talking about R3s. Is it currently zoned R3 over there, residence 3?
Sir, the zoning is mostly ER2, but this is not a zoning hearing, to be clear. This is a comprehensive plan amendment to change the future land use map from Res 3 to Res 6.
Going from, yeah, it says Res 3 to Res 6.
But those are,
Is
that's a comprehensive plan category, not a zoning category.
Okay, I'm a little confused then. But my comment, further comment is that also this density, the issue, I think part of the personal issue is the amount of traffic, 148 more people and automobiles driving out of that road, turning on the gateway. It's a very dangerous intersection. And people that come in here oftentimes, snowbirds pay little attention to a 55-mile-an-hour speed limit, and people drive 70 and 80 miles an hour down that road. So it is dangerous. We're gonna kill some of those 148 people when they move in. But not me personally. I'm just gonna stay out of the way. I hope. But another comment was that DOT is looking at and evaluating the extension of US 56 extension from 301 to US 19. Chansey and County Road 54 is one of the corridor possibilities still being considered. That would push all the traffic coming east on 56 that has to turn left or right on 301. It'd push it right up around Chansey and right down that road.
Thank you. All right. Mr. Hobby, are you ready?
Could staff put that map back up, because I have a question for Mr. Hobby about the map. Clark, before you do your rebuttal, just a question. If hypothetically, if the road swap does not occur, do you have an alternate plan that would still allow you to achieve the density that you're seeking to achieve?
Yes, we do. We set this up and gave this great thought, working actually with the county attorney's office in case the swap agreement does not go through. We would still have a Res 6 plan. What we would likely do in the rezoning process is we would come in and focus more on the existing gateway and add landscaping and stuff like that that would help beautify the area and make it so it didn't look like you were driving between manufactured housing projects. But the comp plan and the zoning applications have been set up so that we can go either way. We can either swap the land or we can not swap the land.
So if you don't swap, you would have access to Gateway.
Yes, it's public right-of-way right now.
So would you make improvements to Gateway then?
We had talked about that, early on. My client wasn't excited about it because the neighbors were pushing us to only have emergency access on it. This project, David, do you see on the eastern, there's another access point on there? That would likely be where if Gateway were not flip-flop, that might be our only access. We might have to have an emergency access somewhere. But we might have access there, or we might push our own internal access a little bit further to the west for spacing purposes. But we don't have to have Gateway Drive in any event. We don't have to have it. We can go either way. That's basically the answer.
Okay, but the roadway to the west, that I'll call the loop roadway, that you were only building if...
That's right. We would not build this if Gateway is not vacated, if the land swap does not occur. We would have an access somewhere out of the site. Like I said, it probably would not be quite that far east, probably be more centrally located, probably over in this area would be my guess. And that's what we would do. And again, we try to create some, we want to be good neighbors. I know I'm answering your question, and I don't want to be long-winded and go beyond the question, but I can't tell you how much time and effort Equity Lifestyles and I and Bob Oros have into trying to make this happen. And we really thought everyone was going to be super thrilled coming into today, so I'm kind of at a loss. But it's set up so that if the swap doesn't occur, we can proceed with the same zoning and leave this road, Gateway Drive, as it is. To me, that doesn't make a whole heck of a lot of sense because the road is in really bad shape and the county has not ever agreed to take ownership and maintenance of the road. Personally, what I was trying to do was, I was hoping that if we contributed enough money, and again, you're only seeing one little portion of Frontier here, it's a mile long. If we contributed enough money to resurface the entirety of Marks and Frontier and build a new road, I was going to try very hard to get the staff to take ownership and maintenance of these roads going forward so that the neighbors weren't stuck with this ongoing maintenance. And that's what I've been really pushing towards. But in any event, if we get 25 people telling us at the hearings that they don't want it vacated or they're not willing, again, this is a private matter. There's an easement that goes over here, and we need, the title company saying we need to have their 15 property owners that have an access easement over the same area where the right-of-way is. We're asking them to get rid of that once the new road is built and it's a public right-of-way. But if they don't want that and someone wants to hold it up, we won't have any choice to go back to what we were proposing when we originally started. The client will be really disappointed because we've spent so much time. And we've literally had a bi-weekly meeting on this with people in Chicago for 1.5 years now and tried very, very hard. And Bob and I have spent hundreds of hours trying to make this happen because I was at the community meeting, and I swear I thought I heard 90% of the people tell me that they would much rather have this than leave Gateway as it is and have 55 plus people accessing what's a public right-of-way. When they were talking about the emergency access right here, that was a voluntary thing we're doing. That's not in any of the approvals. It's a public right-of-way. We have the right to go on the road. So, anyway, I know that's
Clark, but one more question, and then I promise
Yes.
Mr. gets your rebuttal.
Mhm.
So, can we put the zoning map back up? So, I thought you said the property to the west was industrial, but is the map?
It's planned industrial, hasn't been zoned
So,
yet.
okay, so it's comp plan is industrial.
That's right. Which
The
is what we're-
zoning is still AC.
That's right. That's right.
Okay, that answers that question.
This really is a good segue into my rebuttal, because if we could go to that one aerial that's zoomed out, really hope the Planning Commission will understand the bigger picture here on the south side of the road. I don't doubt that my neighbors live in a community. Someone started building in the late 80s, early 90s, and it has larger lots down there. I think the original developer went under, and the road ended up in this kind of weird situation where you have a divided two-way road, I don't think the roads were built properly, and that's why the county would never take ownership and maintenance of the road. It's been a long story, and I don't know all the ins and outs. But what I do know is, if this will work, this is 1,000 units that my client currently owns all of those lots. The homeowners buy the manufactured houses themselves. 1,000 units right here in a very dense environment. That's Res 6. This is a much smaller project that would be in this area, but it would be at the same type of density. But this property where the Linvilles is, and I'm sorry I'm talking about them without them being present, is one of the biggest light industrial projects, and it runs way down here. It's 800 acres that the Linville family owns. It's within the county and the EDC call the Pasco Ready sites, and has been the subject of a lot of marketing effort to try to bring jobs to the county. It's a county-wide issue. So this area, and particularly when you talk about this may be part of the extension of State Road 56 in that corridor, this area from running along the highway frontage here is not going to stay in a rural condition. This is going to have very, very large light industrial development over time. It has frontage on the railroad system, Chancey Road, which is planned to be 4-lane, and County Road 54, which is planned to be at least 4-lane. So for the entirety, I'm sorry, Chancey's already 4-lane now. I apologize. I'm thinking of growing up there, but in any event, this area is going to continue to get more and more dense over time. The Linvilles cattle that are out there are greenbelting the property now, but that's not the plan for the area, and the site's been planned industrial light for I think 30 years. Just a couple of other things I would point out here. I think you noted we are not adjacent to the city of Zephyr Hills. We do not plan to annex into the city of Zephyr Hills. We've not ever had them tell us that they want us to annex and this site into the city of Zephyr Hills. I think that's a non-issue. As to County Road 54, we submitted a transportation needs assessment from Mike Razor, and it determined there's adequate capacity on County Road 54 here, which is what you're required to do on a plan amendment that adds density, so that it meets and will continue to meet the level of service there. And then the last thing I was going to say is just remember, all we're talking about here is this is 1,000 units. We're talking about the potential to add 90 more units here in a age-restricted community. Not a lot of traffic generated out of age-restricted communities. I don't think this is going to have the significant impact that our neighbors, some of them are speaking today, that they believe that they're going to have. But I can tell you that what we offered on this road construction, I don't have any other clients that have ever agreed to do something like that on a 30-acre site. I've never seen it happen. I'm talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, and the engineering alone will probably be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. So anyway, that's my response, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you all may have.
So one more question, Clark, I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm. No, go ahead.
So you mentioned that it's age restricted, but the comp plan can't really restrict that. The zoning can. Are you planning to bring the zoning, is the zoning eventually going to line up with the comp plan, or?
It has to be afterwards because it's a Euclidean. So it will
what
be
is your-
one month after. I can tell you, we've already, the application and everything we've told the county. Equity Lifestyles, the majority of their communities are age restricted, and so we have every intention of filing the deed restrictions to age restrict the community. So when we get to the zoning, if we need to, talk about that
I
issue,
guess,
we certainly
did
can.
your needs assessment for the plan amendment assume it was age restricted?
I don't believe so.
Can
I
Mr.
can
Razor
ask-
confirm that?
Do you remember, but did it assume age restricted? I believe so. Okay, it must have.
Well, technically, that restriction is not existing at the plan amendment stage. I'm just, I mean, you
Understood.
understand that, so.
That's something we can address at the time of zoning, for sure.
Correct, although technically, there'd be nothing, if it changes to Res 6, there's nothing to say that the zoning is going to be
I
age
understand.
restricted.
I can tell you there was a ton of capacity out there. We can update our report prior to.
Hey,
county
I'm just saying,
commission.
if you're gonna not have the zoning go at the same time as the plan amendment,
Right.
you probably need to update your needs assessment to assume it's not age restricted.
Mike is saying it was not did not assume that it was age restricted. He spoke in
Okay.
error a second ago.
Okay, then you're probably fine.
Okay. Hey, Chris?
Yeah, I don't want to get Clark too off on the tangent on the roads, but can you confirm, so Gateway is public,
Right.
Marks is private,
All three of the roads have public right-of-way. The county has never accepted ownership and maintenance of it, but there's public right-of-way there.
okay. So I commend your client for what they're looking to do. I agree, there's not many developers that would step up and take on that responsibility, that's for sure. Other question for you, in the new reroute access road that's coming in, is that signalized at 54? Is that the plan to be signalized? No?
There's not anywhere near enough volume to.
Okay,
to
that was my
signal.
question. Okay, and then maintenance of that, I think you went down that path, so if the county doesn't take ownership and maintenance of that new access road, is your client willing to do it?
Our client's willing to do it if the county won't.
Okay. That's it for me for right now.
Okay. Anyone else?
The only comment I would make is the person who said about the accidents or the life-threatening occurrence out there. I reviewed the documents that the county provided, and they said that police, fire, and emergency services, which I guess are hospitals, are sufficient in that area. And I would say, if anything else, that in addition to this project here and other projects that are coming for the area, you're going to see an increase in the services that I just mentioned. So I don't think that's kind of a new issue in my mind. So the only problem I see is you're working with the road, and I think that you should be committed, and your client especially should be committed on the better road and the removal of not a good road. So I think that's kind of a no-brainer in my mind, so. All right. That's the only concerns I have.
Well, I appreciate it. Again, I don't want to butter the client up too much, but the client has gone the extra mile on this. I think everyone would admit that. So we appreciate it, and I'm happy to answer any other questions you may have.
Anything?
Just a quick comment. I don't know if anybody's talked about this, but the airport's about a mile away, and I know that Zephyr Hills is going to expand that airport. They've talked about that. So this area, I mean, it's just inevitable that there's going to be more growth, especially with the industrial area there. That's my only comment.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, I think we've heard everything from both directions. So do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve PC 3 with recommendations from the county. That's my recommendation.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion of the motion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Okay, where are we, Denise?
We are on item P4.
Good day, Chairman and Commission members. Jessica Colwell with Pasco Planning Development Department. Item P4 is PDD 227526 in the name of Daryl and Karen Renner for a requested change in zoning from AR Agricultural Residential District to MPUD Master Plan Unit Development District to allow for 108 single-family detached units on approximately 50.15 acres. This item was heard by the Planning Commission on September 30th and was continued at the Planning Commission's request to this hearing date. If at the chair's request, I don't have any problems giving the staff presentation, but in the essence of time, I can give it over to the applicant. I know they have requested extra time.
Okay.
At your pleasures.
All right, we'll just wait for that then, if we need it. Thank you, Jessica. Hello, Ms. Terrapini.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the Planning Commission. I'm Cindy Terrapini with Terrapini Planning Strategies. My address is 128 East Tarpon Avenue in Tarpon Springs, and I have been sworn. I represent KB Home, who is the applicant for this rezoning, and we greatly appreciate the opportunity to present this project to you today, continued from your September meeting. After my presentation, we have a couple other members of our team to speak. The first exhibit is just showing you the really urbanizing area in which this site is located, and hopefully I'm going to do this right. So the site, top button. So the site is right in here. This is 41, and I'm going to turn that light off so you can see the rest of the exhibit. As you know, Land O'Lakes US 41 has been an attractive area for residential for many years due to its convenient location, good access, availability of services, and the natural beauty of the area. And this area has been developed to lakes and reserves to the south, Caliente Resorts, Wilderness Lake Preserves, the Groves, and then Connerton to the north of the Groves. The Bexley North MPUD is the green shaded area you see to the west of the Renner site and to the west side of the railroad track. It's 6,800 acres. We're not that big, of course, and it is a DRI scale development with over 11,000 residential units approved in DRI scale commercial and office. Within Bexley, you can see an area which is under development today, this Del Webb area, which is right in this area to the southwest of the Renner site. To the east of the Renner is the Arden Preserve MPUD, which was approved in 2019. It was approved for 130 single-family homes on 40-foot widths, 4,400 square foot lots. Many of these homes are occupied and many more are under construction. To the north of Arden Preserves is Land O'Lakes High School and the School Board Administrative Complex. The Renner MPUD and all the properties from the railroad track east all the way to Land O'Lakes Boulevard are all designated Res 3, 3 units an acre. The Renner project is consistent with that Res 3 because we are proposing single-family detached only. That is allowed, of course, in Res 3, and we are consistent with the density of Res 3. We can go to the next slide, please. I want to zoom in a little bit to show you the area in a little more detail and specific. As you can see, the railroad tracks is the west, and that pink line is Bexley Road that will come from the west all the way through Bexley North, and then continue east all the way to US 41, Land O'Lakes. The Renner site is the red area that we were just looking at. It's in this area right here. To the immediate north is the proposed Clark MPD that you just recommended for approval. And the Arden Preserve project that I mentioned had already received approval is right here. Of course, this is US 41 along the east side of that map. We do propose single-family homes, which is the exact same land use as exists in the area, approved and existing. To the east of our site, the wetlands on our site will be an effective buffer from the residential in that area. To the northwest, Bexley Road and a 20-foot landscape buffer will create the effective buffer and separation. There's only one house between us from the Renner property, then Bexley Road, there's one home, and then the balance of that property going north is Clark, the Clark MPD. And the property to the west and south of Renner is vacant, owned by LSB Corporation, the same entity that does own some property within Bexley North. The project is in compliance with all the major elements of the Land Development Code. Let me just highlight a couple of those. We're protecting all the wetlands on the site. We're not impacting any of the 16 acres of wetlands. We are extending sewer and water lines from Arden Preserve to the site. We're meeting all of our neighborhood park requirements. And most importantly, we're complying fully with the Vision Road requirements. There is a north-south road that will run from Bexley south through our site and dead end at our property. It doesn't connect to anything today, but we are dedicating that 80 foot of right-of-way. We're designing and permitting and constructing that road through our property. And secondly, for Bexley Road, we will dedicate a 20-foot strip of right-of-way and an additional triangular section of right-of-way at the west end of the site that the staff requested. I believe in front of you today, the staff has proposed, and they provided to us about an hour and a half before today's hearing, a new condition with regard to architectural standards. I'd like to tell you about what we proposed voluntarily back in June, way before the County Commission started talking about that. First of all, we only have 108 homes in this development. None of those are 40-foot lots. They're all 50-foot lots. And with our first group of conditions, KB Home voluntarily proposed a condition about architectural diversity. And that condition was condition 42 in your old packet, and that condition is that the project shall have a minimum of 4 different architectural home designs which shall be dispersed throughout the development. Like I said, it was presented to us today, these new conditions with regard to architectural standards, and my client has said that he would be in agreement with those as well, should you decide to do that. Just very quickly, I'd like to run through the slide just so you can see what the type of design that are proposed in the community. We do have 1-story and 2-story homes with a variety of elevations. And again, we did propose this way before the county commission started talking about it in public because we thought it was an important thing to do. You can just, next slide, please. A second type of single-story. Next slide. Another single-story design. Next slide. Single-story. And then we do have several pages or several examples of 2-story home design that you can see there as well. We also weren't required to have a neighborhood meeting, but we did have one.
Cindy, can you go back for a second?
Sure.
Just a word of advice to you. I would not show those to the Board of County Commissioners without a street tree in the front yard. Just being honest with you.
Well, we were advised about the street tree requirement last week, and we are in agreement with the street tree. That has been added to our condition. We don't have a problem with that, but I appreciate the suggestion. I just want to say one other thing, and then I'd like to turn it over to Mike Razor. We did have a neighborhood meeting. It was virtual, so it was back in May with all of our neighbors, and we talked to them about the project. I know that there is some concern, and perhaps they will be here today, but I just wanted the board to know that we did have a neighborhood meeting and try and address their concerns with the project. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mike.
So, Cindy, before you leave, so what I heard you say is your client's okay with the revised condition dealing with architectural.
The ones that were proposed to us today
Is your client in agreement with all the other conditions?
Well, I understand there's no, well, no, we're not, we're agreeing with the street tree. We have no problem with that. I'm not sure what number that is. We do have a concern about which road improvements we are going to do, and Shelley Johnson will speak to that. So that is the other condition that's in dispute. So there's really only one condition that we're concerned with.
So that's condition 16.
15 and 16, I believe, yes. Or maybe it's 16 and 17 now.
I think it's 16 and 17.
Yes, it's regard to what road improvements we make and then the bonding will build the timing of that improvement.
Okay.
Good afternoon. For the record, Michael Razor, 19046 Bruce B. Downs Boulevard, Tampa, 33647, and I have been sworn. I'm a Florida registered professional engineer with a specialization in traffic engineering with approximately 25 years of experience. I prepared the timing and phasing traffic study for this project, which was performed consistent with the Land Development Code and the project traffic study methodology statement as approved by County Transportation staff. The results of the traffic study identified acceptable traffic operating conditions in consideration of Pasco County Transportation Performance Standards pursuant to the Land Development Code and Comprehensive Plan. And as discussed at the last Planning Commission regarding the traffic assignment, specifically from Bexley Road to Wisteria Loop, north versus south, in regard to access to US 41. The traffic study and the assignment was based on current existing traffic patterns identified from traffic counts, which resulted in the distribution to the north versus the south. And also I'd like to note that from this project to US 41 via Wisteria Loop North, once you get from Bexley Road, you can make a left or a right onto Wisteria Loop. If you head to the north, you have a 3,400 foot distance to get to US 41. If you wanted to go to the south, it would be 4,200 feet on Wisteria Loop South, plus another 3,600 feet on Tower Road, a combined total of 7,800 feet, again, compared to the 3,400 feet going to the north, so 2.3 times as long from that triangle portion where you would transfer from Bexley to Wisteria Loop, also to the south, the circuitous route, which does support, again, the existing traffic counts and the distribution used in our traffic study. And of course, I'll be here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Shelley Johnson, 6400 Madison Street, and I have been sworn. Thank you for your time today. We wanted to go through, I know as everyone recalls, when we were here on September 30th, we got continued by the commission, and the request that we were sent back with was to explore the potential of, and if you could go to sheet 2 on the exhibits, if you don't mind, that shows the 2 alignments of Wisteria Loop. I don't think that's sheet 2. Well, nevertheless, we were here on the 30th. You guys did ask us to go back and explore the potential of moving what is our existing access, which is the existing alignment for Wisteria Loop out to US 41. You asked us, and that is our only access. We have no access south. I don't know if that was really brought to the commission's attention at the last meeting, but this is our only access, the existing Wisteria Loop, that alignment. So we were asked to go back and look to see if we could potentially move that alignment north onto the Clark MPD, the MPD y'all just approved earlier on consent agenda. And so we did. I feel like we vetted it very thoroughly, very extensively. We spent the last month talking to staff, talking to our team, talking to the Clark MPD, to D.R. Horton's representatives to try to see if we could make it work. So what we came to find is that the construction cost estimate to build that future extension is, I think, is a little over $2.7 million. So if you remember, what our current Wisteria Loop extension and substandard road improvement is to approve the current alignment, and that's going to be around $914,000. So to go in to do that future alignment, we're talking about a $1.88 million gap in cost that cannot be recouped anywhere. And that's assuming we take $1 million, almost $15,000 of credits, we take that in and absorb it on our existing site, we're still left with $1.88 million in cost that we have nowhere to recoup. We did talk to D.R. Horton about it because we thought, well, I talked to David, we said, well, maybe D.R. Horton will buy them. We did have a couple conversations, 2 or 3 conversations, to ask if they would buy them in bulk. They would not agree to buy them in bulk. We asked if they would buy them in quarterly increments, the 1.88 impact fee credits. They would not buy them in quarterly increments. We asked, will you do a joint construction project with us? We'll build it with you. They were not agreeable to that. The only thing that they offered up was that they would give us, they potentially, if necessary and if needed, so it's not a for sure thing, they would buy between 15 and 20 impact fee credit unit increments from us if they needed them to absorb into their MPD, the one you just approved, the 410 units. My understanding from talking to everybody is they may have other credits to the north because of all the work they're doing that they're going to have to absorb. So that's why I think, their position was, look, the best we can say is if needed. So we were left with $1.88 million and nowhere to go with it. The second big issue, and I don't know if this was really reiterated during the last commission meeting, was there's a class 1 wetland where this Vision Road's supposed to go. And it is going to be severely impacted. So what we determined, and the people we've talked to, our engineers have determined, we're going to have to do DEP permitting, and the best case scenario is 2 years to get a permit to even build this alignment. And that's a good scenario, 2 years. I mean, we're talking about 108 unit development in Res 3 that's ready to go under construction in the spring. So we have this little development stuck, and we did look, we tried, and that's the things we went through in terms of trying to make this work. So we're stuck with this little development that's being asked to do what is basically 3 times, if not more, what a typical development would be required to do in Pasco County to comply with substandard road requirements. And I went back and I read 901.4 because I thought, what are we trying to get to here? And this is what 901.4 says. And this is the intent of the substandard road in your code. To ensure that deficiencies on substandard roads impacted by new development are corrected and mitigated. Ensure that deficiencies on substandard roads are mitigated by new development. Our substandard road is the existing loop. It's the existing access. We can mitigate and correct that road. Your staff said that we can do it. Our experts have said we can do it. So although we try and we understand you all are trying to make everybody happy, I mean, to require this little development to try to take on this $2.7 million, improvement project that literally has nothing to do with it complying with substandard road, because we can comply with substandard road. We're going to comply with substandard road by approving our road and the existing access that we have to the site, the only access we have to the site. We don't need to do future alignment improvements in order to comply with substandard road requirements. We just don't. So as much as we're trying, to be amenable and to try and find a resolution, it's just not a reasonable thing for this little development to go forward on. So we understand your position. We would request your support, and just to go with the original recommendation coming from staff that we were in agreement with, which is that we, build that existing alignment, and it'll make it better. And I think, as you mentioned earlier, Mr. Chair, that, you know, ultimately it's gonna help values. I mean, the road's gonna be better for them, for now. You know, someday, some big development will come along and they're gonna handle that big Vision Road improvement, but it's not this little guy. But I'll be happy to answer any questions.
So Shelley, you made one statement that is not completely accurate. You said that you had no use for the credits, and you talked about, well, the Clark MPUD may or may not buy them. Our ordinance is very clear that you can sell those credits anywhere in the same benefit district. So that would be, I think, believe the whole central, the entire central district. You could sell your credits. I mean, your own consultant just talked about all the development around you. Any one of those people could buy your credits.
My reaction to that is, we're talking about a 108 unit development. We're talking about the difference between a $2.7 million road and a $914,000 substandard road improvement. And ultimately, you know how the impact fee credits, they have to build the road before they're gonna get any credits. I don't know if everybody understands that. In other words, KB Homes would have to build a almost $3 million road in order to start getting credits for this little 108, unit development. I mean, it just, from a circumstance and factual, it just doesn't make sense, and it's not necessary. We can comply with the code by doing the improvements to the existing.
I understand. I'm just saying, I don't want planning commission to be under the belief that the only people that could buy those credits.
No, I agree with you on that. You can sell
You
them.
somewhat misled planning commission by saying that you made it sound like Clark MPD was the only people that would buy your credits,
Well,
and that's not an accurate statement.
I'll restate it. What I meant was, we don't have anybody right now in the horizon that's gonna buy $1.88 million in impact fee credits. We don't have anybody in the benefit district that we know of that wants to buy them right now. We know D.R. Horton doesn't wanna buy them, and we know we can't use them, except for maybe 1 million of them at this point. So that's kind of where we're stuck. We're between a rock and a hard place on it. But we'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Does anybody else would like to speak? Right.
Ray Gadd, again, not here in my official capacity, but rather as a citizen of Pasco County, 6504 Wisteria Loop. Mr. Couch and Mr. Naco couldn't be here today due to competing commitments, so I'm also speaking on their behalf as well. Again, I want to reiterate that we are not opposed to the development. We're not opposed to the D.R. Horton development. I will compare the two, though. I mean, D.R. Horton could have come into this community and pushed forward in using Wisteria Loop, but they chose not to do that and are taking their traffic out onto 41 via Roach's Run and Causeway Boulevard, which I might add will be great improvements to that area. My concern with this development is, again, not that they're building houses, but then when we look at it from a planning perspective, Bexley South and Bexley North are going to come across that railroad track and down Wisteria Loop. And in addition to the traffic that's going to come out of that neighborhood, there are 3 schools that are planned for the future between Tower Road and Bexley Road, whatever it's called, west of the railroad track. And so I think we have an opportunity to get it right from the get-go, because eventually this road is going to be problematic. All that traffic coming out of there is going to hit a stop sign, and then they're going to hit 41, and it's going to be a right turn only. So what I'm asking is that we take a future perspective on this planning and try to get the road right ahead of time. I can't dispute their figures. I don't know how they got these road figures. They seem high to me. But I think folks have been reasonable. D.R. Horton has agreed to give them land, property, ponds. They have an opportunity to get fee credits. So I think folks have made an effort to create a situation that's better than the one that was initially proposed. I understand that the wetland's an issue, but wetlands in Pasco County are always an issue. So I would ask that you approve the staff recommendation, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Vicky Wall, 19701 Bexley Road.
And you've been sworn, Becky?
Yes.
Yeah.
First question, have any of you or staff actually been to that site?
Yeah.
You have, okay. Well, that's promising. I do understand too that there is going to be, as they stated too, there's going to be a road that will have access from the south. From another party, I realize that's going to happen. And at that time, that's going to impact, because there will be people passing through that subdivision to come out on Bexley Road as well. So at what point does that impact traffic-wise? And I'd also like to ask the gentleman what date the traffic study was done, a couple years ago, or was that recent?
When they come back up, they can answer.
Okay. And the other thing I want to say is that for over 60 years, this neighborhood has remained the way the forefathers wanted it, to be rural density. And I think there's a lot of misunderstanding from the public, or lack of understanding from the public, about future land use and who decided that. And it isn't decided by the taxpayers. It's decided by usually a consulting group that comes and lays out what they think. And that's not the people that are impacted. So you can just go anywhere and draw anything, but at the end of the day, there needs to be consideration for the wetlands, the animals, because we're taking their habitat all across this county away, and our lifestyles, and all the other developments in Land O'Lakes, from Oakstead to Asbell Creek, Wilderness, Connerton. They didn't come into neighborhoods. Those were large, vast tracts of land. So they didn't bother neighborhoods. This is trying to put a concrete jungle in the middle of an established rural neighborhood. And we had eagles this morning, which I have pictures of. That, you're taking all that away. Eventually, just have respect. That's all.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Clark Hobby, Hobby and Hobby PA again. I'm only here because I think Mr. Tonello had a question for me. Do you still have a question, or?
No, I just wanted you here because if, you know, if you're gonna, you know, Shelley wants to say something, I want you to be able to answer the question as.
Okay.
Just
The only thing I would say is we don't have a position about how you all go with this road thing. That's really for the county and KB to decide. The only thing I would say on the record is we are gonna dedicate the right-of-way, and we're prepared to dedicate the additional land for the ponds, the mitigation, and Shelley knows all that. The issue, I think, is more of a feasibility with cost and permitting and stuff, but we don't have a position one way or the other. I'm happy, I'll remain here to
Clark,
answer any questions.
one of the arguments Shelley made was that your client wasn't really willing to buy any of their credits. So can you speak to that?
I don't really want to talk about private conversations because I think that's really inappropriate, because I think we did have a conversation. It was not intended to be something for the public. I'm going to speak in general terms about what any of our home builder clients would say about fee credits. We generally are willing to buy fee credits when we need them, and the people have them available. And sometimes we'll buy them in some tranches, but we generally do not buy them prospectively in advance in large quantity, because for us, it's money out the door that we get charged interest on. The different home builders have different amounts of interest that they charge internally to their divisions for spending money on stuff. So, and just, I'm gonna talk, and just a vacuum here. We wouldn't go out and buy $5 million worth of fee credits generally from somebody unless we had an immediate need or close to an immediate need for $5 million worth of fee credits. We might buy a couple of $100,000 at a time as we need them, and we'll use them on houses pretty quickly. But that's just a generic term. Again, I really don't want to get in the middle of characterizing private conversations. I don't think that's a good
Well,
idea.
there was also a statement made that you all have your own free credits, but my recollection of the Clark MPD was that was sort of a, only if Hagman didn't build Roach's Run, you would get.
That's
So
right. I
that
am
seemed to
not
be very
anti-
speculative that you'd have your own credits.
The overwhelming majority of our work off-site will not be fee creditable, and it's highly likely that the work on Roach's Run will be done by others. You know, they're already obligated to do that. My understanding is one of the other developers is in the process of starting the process.
So what I'm hearing you say is there is at least a possibility that you could buy their credits over time, not in a large amount.
I think that's fair to say.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else to speak? Shelley, you want to come back up, or you want to answer, somebody want to answer the question about when the study was done? So are you with the applicant, or are you on the other
I'm
side?
one of the neighbors.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Can we have your name and address, please?
My name is George Wall. I live at 19701 Bexley, have for the last 47 years.
Okay.
I have 8
George, have you been
grandchildren.
sworn?
I'm sorry?
Have you been sworn?
I sure did.
Good.
Yes, sir. What I'm up here trying to do is, I know we all have children and hopefully grandchildren. I have 8 grandchildren, 4 of which live close by. 4 of them live close by to say they're within probably 500 yards. So it's nice to have them come over to the house and enjoy everything, being in the country environment. One of the things that concerned me is years ago we had some bad water flooding to gain us access from Wisteria to down Bexley Road to our residence. And it was quite substantial. We had to use a pickup truck. It was 3 to 4 feet of water. I'd say 3 feet, to be honest with you. It could have been a little higher at some point in time. And my concern is if you start rerouting a lot of the water, which the water that comes from Wisteria flows into Clark property. Clark property, it flows across Bexley and our neighbor renter, his place, and then flows out. It kind of comes in and winds back out again. So if they start diverting water, I'm concerned about that. I'm also concerned about the roadways. I'm a senior citizen, hate to admit it, but I am. I'm concerned about all the traffic that we have out in front of us, the traffic that's being created. There's different periods of time, such as when school goes in, school goes out, that it's almost impassable. It really takes you a long time. So if an emergency vehicle had to come down the road, they would have some difficult response time. I don't hope to die anytime soon, but it is a concern for me, but better yet, my children and my grandchildren. If they ever have an accident, I'd like to think that they could be protected. Thank you so much for listening to me. I appreciate it, and good day.
Thank you, George. Is there anyone else?
Daryl Winter, 19750 Bexley Road. I am the landowner and I have been sworn in. You know, we bought this property a number of years ago and Vicki Wall was our realtor. And, you know, one of the things that interested us, and we wanted this property, we looked at it for years, was the fact that all the property around us was undeveloped. You know, the Bexley Ranch North, the Bexley Ranch South now. And so as I spoke, you know, part of the Bexley Ranch obviously sold. We weren't expecting that. We were told that it would probably be in the Bexley family for years and years and years, but things changed and that happened and they sold. So then the north part of the ranch sold, and well, that's in the family and it will never sell, but it did sell. The Clark property, which you just approved earlier, was a 40-year trust. We don't have to worry about it, but being a little bit naive, 40-year trust doesn't mean anything if the man that owns the trust dies. So now you just approved that. My goal for moving out there was to be that rural community where I was there by myself and didn't have to worry about development. But as you can see, that's all changed. So that's one of the motivations for us wanting to leave. One of the main drivers was the Vision Road coming through Bexley, which would obviously take a big chunk of my property all along the facing part of it. And then that north-south road that they described on the map as well is going to come through the middle of my property at some point in time. And there was a third Vision Road that I understand they've now taken off that was to intersect with that north-south road and head out towards the Bexley Ranch. So that was my motivation for wanting to move away from the development that was there. And I can understand my neighbors not want to have their lifestyle disrupted, but by the same token, I've had mine changed dramatically from what we thought we were going to move into and be our final home for the rest of our life 20 some odd years ago. So just, I appreciate you considering and hearing all the arguments, and just, I know the county staff has made a recommendation that they approve that road as it was provided to you, and the Vision Road I know was not part of that, and I don't think should be part of it. If the Vision Road happens, is it going to be 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years? Nobody knows. We've seen other Vision Roads that have been on the maps for 10, 15 years, like Ridge Road and some of the others. So just appreciate your time and hearing what people have got to say.
Thank you for coming up. All right.
So I have sort of an odd question, but can I, Mr. Hobby, is your traffic engineer for the Clark MPD still here?
Yes.
Can I ask him a question?
Only if I can cross it.
You can ask him whatever questions you want after.
Can we treat this like a Senate hearing? Like if you start asking, I stand behind you.
We don't want to do anything like the
So-
Senate.
Steve Henry, Langston Associates, 5023 West Laurel, Tampa, 33667.
So I guess my question
I've been
is,
sworn. Yes.
why didn't the Clark MPD show a connection to Wisteria Loop? I mean, it obviously has the right of way there, and it's a Vision Road on your property and an existing road that touches your property. Why didn't the Clark MPD connect to Wisteria?
Partially is marketing and where they thought the better marketing window was, and so that's what they looked at is what it is at Wisteria versus where it is where they're proposing to put it in with the new roads and improving the roads, and they came to the conclusion that was a better marketing window. You have people be able to get out to a signal at on 41 at Roach's Run, so from their standpoint, they thought that was a better marketing window.
So it was only marketing, not safety?
I don't know if it was necessarily safety. It was obviously capacity. Again, getting in and getting out. You've got at 41 in Wisteria, you've got a directional median opening. So if you want to go north, you have to make a right out and go down and make a U-turn. Again, they felt that from an overall, access standpoint, that the access with Roach's Run provided a better opportunity for their clients and their customers to be able to get in and out of the property.
Okay. You answered my question. Thank you.
Thank you.
We still have the question of when the study was done.
Yeah,
He's coming up.
Again, for the record, Michael Razor. There was a question posed regarding when our traffic study was done. It was within the last 12 months. It was issued December 2020, so it is a recent traffic study. And included in that study were several adjustment factors typical of any traffic study performed in the county and elsewhere, where we actually, from the traffic counts, adjusted up 20% for peaks to reflect peak season and COVID. And in addition, I'd like to state that the traffic study, again, put traffic on Wisteria as that is our only access to US 41. We don't have a choice. We have to go east at the current time. There's no access to the west, south, north. We have to go east. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, is that it?
Mr. Chair, I think there's...
Yes. Please come up to the microphone, please. We have your name and address, please.
Mary Chapman, 19525 Causeway Boulevard.
Okay,
in the
Mary,
Lakes.
have you been sworn?
No.
Could you swear?
Okay. I have a question about this accessing the Clark property to Roach's Run. Now, that's...
Madam, you realize that the Clark MPD's already been approved.
Oh, I know, but I just have a question, because Causeway Boulevard, which was mentioned, is a private road, and property lines abut the Clark property line. And I'm just wondering how they're going to access...
So, ma'am, the public hearing for that MPUD has really been closed already, so you probably need to just have that conversation with Mr. Hobby, who's, I believe, still here, or Mr. Henry, who just spoke.
Yeah, they're right at the back.
We really can't be taking more testimony from the public on the Clark MPD, because this body's already acted on that one.
Okay,
Okay.
because, you know...
If you wanted to ask questions
we
about
haven't gotten any kind of
Redder
notification
MPD,
on it or anything.
you haven't, I'm sorry, pardon me?
We haven't gotten any kind of notification on it except this letter for today.
Right, but
We've
the chair
already-
asked for public comment on that one earlier, and nobody spoke.
Okay, well, I'm not familiar with this kind of thing, so I guess I missed the boat on that one. But I just...
Well, Mr. Hobby's right back there.
Mr. Hobby's
Find out
right-
what he's got in mind, I'll let you know.
Mr. Hobby can answer your questions, and
back there.
you'll have another chance to speak on it when it goes to the Board of County Commissioners.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you.
Thank you. He's right back there in the middle. He's the guy with the target on his chest. All right. I guess, Shelley, we're back to you.
Yes, I just wanted to reiterate a couple things. I think Mike reiterated, we have one access, we can't go south, we can't go east, we can't go west. We've got to go out Wisteria Loop. That's our only access on this property, otherwise we're landlocked. Someone had raised the question again about it being a rural area. This is a central market area. It's a Res 3. We're developing it in accordance with its existing land use, what's planned to be developed out at. We're not asking for a land use change. I think Mike effectively addressed all the traffic questions that came up last time and today. And there was the last question about flooding, and obviously, you know, that'll be something that we'll deal with when we get to site plan. But we do appreciate your time today. We did try to make it work, but this little development can't feasibly take on that project. We can comply by utilizing our existing Wisteria Loop assets, bring it up to standards. Everyone agrees we can bring it up to standards. I think it'll be a better road for everybody out there. And obviously, as you had mentioned earlier, you know, it'll help values, we think, too, as well. So we thank you for your time.
Shelley, can I ask you before you sit down, so the $2.8 million number that you threw out
Yes.
before, as far as the cost to complete that Vision Road, what does that consist of? Is that the physical construction, or what does that cost consist of?
I believe it includes permitting and physical construction. Engineering, permitting, and physical construction.
Okay, so there's no consideration of, because as I understand in the Clark MPUD, all the right-of-way is going to be dedicated, is that, so there is no right-of-way acquisition or any other land costs, that's just physical
That's just
construction costs?
Yeah, and
permitting.
I think a lot of it, and I don't want to misspeak, but I think a lot of it is driven by the Class 1 wetland that's
Right.
going to be impacted,
Absolutely.
and the DEP
Yep.
permitting, which is obviously significant, so.
Okay, thank you.
And that's, Shelley, that's just the cost of the yellow road. I'll speak to the map that was up there. That's just the
that
yellow
section.
segment of road.
Yeah,
Just that one section?
Just that small section on Clark, yeah.
And just for clarification, I know that, I think you had mentioned condition 16 was the condition 16 and 17, I believe, are the ones you guys are objecting to. What is your client willing to do versus what that condition's requiring? I mean, can you give us a brief summary of that?
Yeah, absolutely. If you go back to the original condition that we came to the commission with on the 19th that staff was in support of, or on the 30th, I apologize, in September, it basically addresses our improvement of the existing Wisteria Loop so that we can bring it up to standard. If you look at number 16, 15 now has become 16, and if you look at that, it basically, I think it was just an oversight maybe when the agenda was put together, but it basically is written as if we have to do both improvements. So now we're looking at a $4 or $5 million improvement versus just, one of them. So obviously that just puts it
I
even more
think
further out.
they're objecting to 16B.
Yeah. I don't know if I can.
I don't think
approach
that
the
16,
bench.
I don't think that 16A and C change. They're objecting to 16B, which is the
So it
realigned.
would be, I can approach the bench if you want to provide it, but it's the existing 15 on the original recommendation approved from staff. And I do have a copy of it here.
And David, that B would consist of the yellow segment that's highlighted on the map,
Yeah, I
correct?
believe, they, instead of building the yellow segment, they want to build they
The
want to improve
improvements,
the
right.
existing roadway, the V segment, I guess you could call it.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know, the way that the condition was revised, I think staff was under the impression that the commission was wanting us to build both roads, fix both, do both roads. So it was, the way it's written now, is it?
I don't think, in my opinion, that's not what staff drafted. They wanted you to just build the yellow road, not the existing V road.
Right.
Nevertheless, condition number 15 on the original is, what I hear what you're saying, David, I'll have to look at it, I don't have it sitting in front of me, but,
So Shelley, just to be clear, so at the last meeting, I remember specifically asking the question, would you build the realigned road? And the answer we received was yes, but we won't do both. So was that not an accurate answer back then?
Well, I think that what ended up happening when we went back and started to really vet it, we started to realize what kind of an issue we had, and I think a lot of it was.
So you weren't being
driven by the
truthful
last one.
before?
I was being truthful, I think at the time.
I flat out asked, would
Well,
you
let
build
me
the
just say that
realigned
my
road?
client
The
was.
answer I received was yes, but we will not do both.
Okay.
You want me to get the tape?
No, I'm not saying, I'll let you finish, then I'll respond, definitely.
So,
Right. I think what ended up happening is initially that day, yes, we were like, okay, because we tried to make it work. We went back and actually looked at everything. I mean, we had the full intention of doing it. Obviously, they spent a lot of time and money and all of us paying us consultants to try to vet this issue in the last month. And it just didn't work. So yes, at the time, I totally agree
so
with
you
you.
do
and I
admit
think-
that you did say yes, that you would build the
I think
road?
that my client at that time, yes, we,
Excuse me, we don't speak from the floor.
Well, you can bring him up if you want.
You wanna
but-
come up and
yes, I think
speak?
my
Come on up.
client was of the impression that yes, they could do it, and we did say that. I would not deny that at all. I would have no reason to. It's the truth. And ultimately, when we went back and looked at the cost, it was a big issue.
Well, my concern is there's objectors who wanted that road built, specifically the sheriff and Mr. Couch, who may have left that meeting thinking that your client was willing to build that realigned road and didn't show up today because there was a representation to this planning commission that you were willing to build that realigned road.
Well, I mean, I would disagree with that, but I mean, obviously, that's, your perspective. I think that, they were well aware that there was a lot of stuff still up in the air when we walked out of that meeting. I mean, that was my impression, my feeling,
Maybe
but,
Mr. Galley can speak to it, but
Yeah.
I think you left with the impression that you would build that road. So that's probably why staff put a condition saying you would build it.
no, and I don't think we've represented to staff that we were gonna build it either.
I'll
since
be
that
happy, I'll be
meeting.
happy to play the tape for you,
I'm
Ms.
not
Johnson.
talking- David,
Where your
I don't
client
wanna get
specifically
into
said
it.
they would build the realigned road. Do you want us to go play the tape?
I'm not saying that we did not say that at the prior meeting. I think I've said that. What I'm trying to say is that when we went back
You
afterwards and started
reconsidered
to
what you
look at-
said.
Yeah, we looked at what the cost was, and obviously a decision had not been made on it, so we vetted it, looked at a cost at it to see if we could do it, and determined it's
Okay.
just too much. But yeah, I'm not gonna deny that we thought we could potentially do it, yes, and we made that representation, and we
I think your
looked at it.
client wants to speak.
I don't want to, but Michael Dade with KB Home. I have been sworn. I did make that statement, David, that we would build the Vision Road alternative presented by the opposition group. However, upon further review, our engineer came up with a minimal construction loan of $2.8 million versus our original estimate that, well, we either do the substandard road or we'll build this road that the residents want, thinking it was an even Steven trade. Even if it was a little over, we probably would have done it. Then we found out that it impacts a giant wetland. The new 404 permitting with the DEP could take over 2 years. And that is an additional cost that hasn't been factored in. So the magnitude of that improvement has grown exponentially. Does that answer the I was being truthful with the facts I have at the time.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think,
So it's obviously up to the planning commission about what you do with this. The only thing I would say that is if you intend to make them build the Vision Road, you do need to add language saying that they would get mobility fee credits for the additional costs, because that language is not, I think staff intended to put that language in and just never did.
okay. Yeah, I think, at least from my perspective, I left that meeting thinking that it was an either or, and I think it was clear that at the time that the planning commission felt that that the Vision Road was the best alternative for all concerned and for future development, and to account for future development. So, it's up to the commission. Who has any questions? Anybody have any questions? I personally, I just think it's not our responsibility to make a development financially feasible. You know, we don't want to make it more difficult, but we know there's going to be substantial traffic coming from Bexley Road, and to think that we're going to bring it onto Wisteria at that hard left turn is, to me, we're just putting off a bad situation.
Conversely, and play devil's advocate for a second and
Yeah.
ask if the Renner MPD is not approved, or they do not do those improvements to the Vision Road, what happens then? That traffic's still gonna come from Bexley.
Then the county would
Correct.
probably have to
Then the county would have
construct
to
the
do it.
road.
Well, I don't remember what Bexley's conditions said in terms of that connection, whether it can be made without making improvements. I don't know. Maybe staff knows, but I don't remember what it said.
Does anybody in staff happen to know?
But I will tell you that it's probably gonna be very far in the future before that part of Bexley North makes that connection. In my opinion, the Renner MPD would put traffic on that road at a date that's much sooner than Bexley would. Because Bexley is other way, you've heard it. Renner, this is the only way in and out of that project. Bexley has Sun Lake Boulevard, which is their major access point. So they have no need to make this connection anytime soon.
Also with Bexley, David, I know that I looked at it a little bit, and that they do use Tower Road a lot to get out.
Tower Road's another, so they really have two other ways. They have Tower Road that goes down to Ashley, used to be Ashley Glen, I forget what it is, Bexley Boulevard or whatever it is now. But they have two connections out to State Road 54. And I will also say Sun Lake Boulevard will connect to Ridge Road, which will also go to 41. So the Bexley connection to this road it's on the Vision Network, but I would not assume that it's going to occur anytime soon.
All right, well, anybody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion for approval with the condition that David put in about the, I know, can you restate that, David?
Well, are you wanting to condition 16 as is, but adding mobility fee credits?
Yes.
Okay. So then the motion would be to approve the conditions as presented with an addition to condition 16 that the applicant shall be entitled to mobility fee credits for the additional costs of building the realigned Wisteria Loop through the Clark MPUD, subject to the applicant entering into a separate development agreement.
All right, then we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I mean, I'll just add, I mean, obviously, I understand, and yes, I completely agree that the representation was made that it was gonna be an either or. You guys were willing to do either one. I understand the fact that now, costs and there are significant impacts and there's significant costs associated with the construction of that road. And I think that does put a pretty tremendous burden on this single 108, 110, whatever it is, unit development.
But you understand that
It's tough
we're not responsible for making their project feasible. We're responsible for making sure that the county ends up with a workable situation. So.
That I do understand. Is there anything else, I guess just looking, and I don't know enough about future plans, but what is the property to the west that will also use Bexley?
To the west.
To the west of Renner?
Over here.
Well, between the railroad tracks and the Renner property.
Does staff know what the zoning is or comp plan is of the property to the west of Renner MPD?
Yes, so the zoning on that is AC. And there's Res 3.
So I think you could probably assume that if they came in with a Res 3 units per acre density, that it likely would, assuming they could deal with the roadway issues, staff would probably recommend approval.
I think I share Jamie's concern about putting all of it on this one particular.
David, can I ask you, so adding the mobility fee credits to the mix, what does that offset for them? Is there any way to
Well, what it
determine
allows them to do is they get credits. So they
Right.
build the road, they get credits. I think Shelley's point is they could certainly use those credits for the 108 units they're building, but they probably would have excess credits that the cost of the road would likely exceed the amount they could use on site.
Sure, understood.
So that's why we got into discussion about potentially selling the excess credits to either Clark MPUD or somebody else. Our ordinance allows for credits to be sold to any development in the same benefit district or adjacent benefit districts under certain circumstances. So, and I don't know that I have the staff as a map of the entire benefit district, but it's fairly large. It's basically the whole central area of the county, basically from the Suncoast to the interstate.
Okay.
They could sell the credits anywhere in that area.
And we know the development going on in that area, sure.
Again, I don't necessarily want to rehash 100% of the last meeting and the last time we were here, but again, can somebody give me a Cliff Notes version of the concern with the intersection? I know obviously I was out there, the intersection, the existing intersection's not great. And the existing additions of the roadways out there, width-wise, everything else are not great. But my question is there any hybrid condition or interim improvements that could be made that would maybe appease everybody?
So it depends on whether you're talking about the condition of the pavement or the geometry. So staff, I believe, and is Essen online or somebody?
Yes, we have them all online.
Staff Essen can probably explain to you what the existing condition of the roadway is, but staff was initially requiring them to bring that existing roadway up to county standards in terms of its pavement condition. What staff was not necessarily addressing was the existing alignment, the geometry and alignment of that road.
I think that what we're trying to avoid is that sharp left turn.
No, again, I was out there today, I was out there this morning, and I saw that there's limited pavement width, there's the limited condition of the
So you
road.
could assume that if they complied with the original condition, the one that was being imposed at the last meeting, that would address pavement width and pavement condition.
Okay.
What it will not address is you see it, the way.
The geometry of the intersection.
Geometry of the intersection.
And I guess that's my question, is there any hybrid? It sounds like we've acknowledged that the Vision Road construction is a ways out, unless these folks do it. Is there any interim condition that would make the geometry of that intersection feasible and meet everybody's concerns?
So you're talking about the sort of
mean, is there anything that can be done to realign that portion of the intersection for people that turn left to miss the wetland further to the north?
Well, and I'm not an engineer, but I guess the question would be, I'll ask the engineers, could the Vision Road be brought further south so it's not impacting the Class 1 wetland as much? Or if maybe not at all?
Doesn't look like it.
This is Hassan Khalil from Borough Planning. Vision Road is not set in stone. But it can be, propose a different alignment that would avoid perhaps the wetland area.
I don't know how far south that Class 1 wetland goes. Does anybody know?
I'm sorry, you're up to answer that question? You're up here to answer that question?
Well, I'm Paul Skidmore. I'm with Florida Land Design and Permitting, 3030 Starkey Boulevard. I have been sworn. It's my understanding that Category 1 wetland goes all the way down to the existing Wisteria roadway and then discharges under the roadway. And the other question regarding that intersection there, my client is willing to try to improve that intersection during the substandard roadway improvements.
What do you mean by that? Because I think that's what Mr. George's question is, what would you do to the intersection other than fix the pavement width and condition?
Well, we could realign it. I do believe that there's a sufficient right-of-way in that area because that is a part that's platted. I believe it's a 70-foot right-of-way, but we could straighten out that kink in the road if it will fit in the right-of-way. And
Well, I thought you just said the wetland came all the way down there.
well, the wetland comes all, you can see right there, Category 1, it even shows it going over the roadway, but it stops on either side of the roadway. And there's a pipe under the road that provides the drainage.
Yeah, but you're talking about moving the road.
No, we're just talking about moving where the intersection is between Wisteria and Bexley and Wisteria going south. It's got a real big kink in it. If you have the aerial up, we could take a better look at it.
Just for confirmation from staff, even though that map shows it Category 2, it is Category 1?
It is, yes.
Well, technically, staff does not categorize wetlands until they've gone out and done a field study. I don't know if staff has done that or not.
Well, this is what you're talking about, right?
Right, correct.
So, I mean, this doesn't come all the way to here.
Yeah, but that's only GIS.
I mean, SN is correct that Vision Roads, the alignment of Vision Roads can be changed.
If I may describe the current situation, there's essentially 3 skewed intersections which could be modified to create one T intersection with traditional 90-degree angles that would improve the current situation in regard to the skews and the quote hard left turns, especially accompanied with the appropriate signage. But currently, it's essentially 3 skewed intersections functioning as one. So there are alternatives that could be employed to modify that to operate in a more traditional fashion.
So, Mr. Jardy, if that's something that you're proposing, in my opinion, this probably would need to be continued until you can get a drawing that shows what that would look like, because unless you're willing to defer that to the Board of County Commissioners, but I mean, if that's important to your recommendation, I don't think staff can just drop a condition in these conditions that says they're gonna do, that we would need some kind of sketch showing what they're going to do to that intersection.
Well, I think I'd like to hear at least, personally, I think this needs to be continued anyways, because there was a representation made that it was an either or, and they would be willing to construct a Vision Road. now that they're not, if there's consideration of some other alternative, or does that even address the concerns of the residents in the area?
That's what I'm saying. I think they would need to provide some
Correct.
sketch of what they're doing, and then let's see what the residents say about it.
I agree. Is the other motion?
Okay, so we had a motion and we did not have a second, so that motion dies for lack of a second. So do we have another motion?
I'll make a motion to continue. Denise, I guess you'd have to look that up for us. We wouldn't have it in Newport Richie?
Yeah.
Following meeting is
If I may.
18th.
Yeah, November
November
18th, we're
18th.
fine with that. I just wanted to tell you that.
Okay. So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion of the motion?
I mean, again, I just in light of, I hate to keep continuing things and kicking the can down the road, but I think just in light of everything we've heard today, I don't know that we have a choice, and that gives the adjacent owners the opportunity to come back out to the public hearing, so.
Okay. So we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion on the motion? If not, all signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Okay, motion carries. So it's continued until what date?
November 18th, 2021, 1:30 in Newport Richie.
Okay.
That was the last item on your agenda.
That was the last one. Why didn't we start with that one then?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Out of here.
Wildlife depend on you to keep them healthy. Excess fertilizer, grass clippings, trash, oils, and pet waste wash into gutters and storm drains when it rains. Stormwater carries these pollutants directly into our lakes and rivers, creating an unhealthy environment for fish, waterfowl, and other aquatic animals. Storm drains are meant for clean rainwater. Most other discharges are illegal. If you suspect an illicit discharge, please contact Pasco County Department of Public Works at 727-834-3611.
Hello, I'm Cindy of Possum Village Rescue.
I'm Linda of Pro Rescue and a volunteer here at Pasco County Animal Services.
My name is Dr. Christine Glenn at PCAS.
We're here to talk with you today about the number of cats coming into Pasco County Animal Services.
You've probably seen loose or stray cats in your neighborhood. Did you know Pasco County does not have leash laws for cats? That means cats can roam free in our county.
And that's why Animal Services doesn't pick up or accept stray cats in the Land O'Lakes shelter. In fact, some of our neighbors enjoy allowing their cats to explore their community, knowing that they won't be picked up and sent to the shelter.
The average shelter return to owner rate for cats is less than 2%. That means if you bring a community cat to our shelter, it's not likely they'll end up being returned to their caregivers. Cats in our communities often have one or more caregivers, and they usually hang out in their home area. The best thing to do for these cats is to leave them be. Share that